What's up, Campus Live fans, and welcome to the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites here in beautiful Lubbock, Texas. We have a top 15 basketball matchup in Houston, Texas tonight. I'm Logan, your host, with my co-host Lane. Lane, it's been a while. How you been?
I've been good, man. I know we haven't seen each other in quite a while, but, I'm glad that we're both back up here, and it's going to be a really exciting night. One of the biggest games that we have on the Big 12 slate for this whole season is tonight, starting at 8 p.m., and me and Logan are about to talk everything about Texas Tech traveling to Houston.
Yeah, but before we get started, I want to take another second to thank Paint Doctor and Roof Master of Lubbock for making this show possible, as well as GolfSuites here, the host of our sports show. We had a great football season, a sad end to it, but we're in basketball season. A Duke win, and that's where I want to start. Big time win for Texas Tech since the last time that we had a sports show.
Yeah, last time we had our live show covering basketball, it was whenever we played Duke, and what a day that was. Being down 17 points, coming all the way back against one of the best teams in the country. They got the Boozer twins, maybe the number 1 overall pick in Cameron Boozer, Isaiah Evans, all the 5 stars that Duke always has. And really all season we've been asking to see that fight, that toughest team wins type of fight that we saw all year last year. We saw that absolutely play out in Madison Square Garden. The tougher team prevailed. Even though we were in crazy foul trouble, I thought Lawan Watts kept us in that game so well early on, battling through, keeping us on the board on the offensive end. And then whenever he fouled out, you saw Christian Anderson and JT Toppin absolutely go nuclear, especially C4 from the three-point line was just going crazy. And then Nolan Groves, Leon Horner, those guys coming in, giving us those good minutes on defense, getting huge rebounds. And Nolan Groves guarding Cameron Boozer in those clutch moments. He accepted the challenge. He got so many huge stops and the huge rebounds. And I thought his offensive rebound tip on that free throw at the end of the game, cut off about 2 seconds on the clock, maybe was the most underrated play of that whole entire game, Logan. And it was just such an awesome and improbable win with all of our big guys out, all the foul trouble, playing Duke. It was one of the most improbable Texas Tech basketball wins I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. You talk about, we saw it last year when we played Arkansas and, in the Sweet 16, get to the Elite 8, being down big and late. This game felt like it was, as a Tech fan, I felt like this game was out of reach.
Yeah.
We were down 17. You have Lawan Watts with 4 fouls, JT Toppin with 4 fouls. Christian Anderson in the first half wasn't playing his best game, was getting, bodied a little bit by the bigger bodies. Duke, big team. But you just saw him chip away. And in the second half, 23 points in the second half to really propel Texas Tech. And just once you saw Texas Tech, kind of creep back into that, get it to about 10 points, you thought, wow, this game might flip on its head. Duke ran, they were playing great basketball in the first 20 minutes. Cam Boozer, great. But the missed free throws by Cam Boozer down the stretch to keep Tech in the game. A couple missed front ends of a 1-and-1, and then the missed free throw to just tie the game heading into that final possession where Anderson's able to pick up the foul. It was just, like you said, a gritty win. And Grant McCaskill talks about it all the time, that the toughest team wins, and you got to believe you're going to win. And they believed, and like you said, Lawan Watts, man, what has he been since that Purdue game? It's been amazing. It's what you brought him to be. He is that Darion replacement, but he's been even arguably better than Darion Williams had been, excluding last season. But Darion Williams, the first season here, struggled to figure it out as well. Lawan has figured it out on both ends of the floor. He's been great. And, being just as effective as he is in the paint.
Yeah, beginning of probably the first month of this year, I think everyone was kind of questioning, man, I don't know how this is really going to work. It seemed that this team wasn't fitting together. The pieces of the puzzle weren't fitting together. Coach McCaskill was calling out probably every single player on this team. It didn't matter if it was Toppin or Christian Anderson, about the level of effort. In every press conference he had, how this team needs better effort on every piece. And he called out guys like Lawan Watts, Tyree Bryan, Donovan Atwell, these new guys that came in, that simply their defensive effort wasn't good enough. And whenever your defensive effort becomes better, that's whenever you score more on the offensive end. And I think that's what you're starting to see these guys figure out, is that when you play under Coach McCaskill, if you bust your butt on the defensive end, those offensive opportunities will open up for you in droves. And you're just seeing Lawan flourish. He has had such a good past few weeks, now averaging almost 16 points a game. And as a third option, that's maybe the best in the whole
do.
entire country right there. And what I was so impressed with in this Duke game, it was similar in last year's Houston's game where JT obviously ejected, Coach McCaslin ejected, still winning on the road, and then it changed the outlook of the whole entire season. To me, even though in a smaller sample size we're earlier on in the year, I think after this game we've seen them play way better defense as a team. I think they're really starting to figure themselves out, Logan.
Oh, 100%. This season was in the balance, as they'll say. I know it's early. You hadn't even made it to conference play yet, but the way you had really played against some of the upper echelon teams you had played in the non-conference didn't give you the same level of, expectation that you were to be a top 10 team in the country. The Purdue game, you got ran off the floor. This game right here was teetering on that edge, 17 points like we talked about. But yeah, it flipped on its head, and you've seen it as we went through Winthrop and then Oklahoma State as well in the Big 12 opener, which we'll talk about in a second. But I think what has really, you said, Coach McCaslin getting on the guys like Donovan Atwell. You have seen him on the defensive side. Now he's knocking down shots and he's getting open. And guys like that, Jalen Petty, busting his butt on the defensive side, making some big-time three-pointers this season. He's been great. I think that, like you said, just Coach McCaslin getting the effort out of those guys now, starting to gel together, practicing together. You've seen a whole different team from what you did early in the season.
Yeah, I love that you bring up Jalen Petty. I love what I've seen from him so far this year. He has a clutch gene. Whenever we need a basket, we've seen time and time again this year, Jalen will hit that big three, or he'll hit a big-time layup where he's acrobatic around the rim because he is a smaller guy. I've been so impressed by Jalen, and especially recently on the defensive end. He's really made strides. It's only been basically 2 months into the season, and I really loved what I've seen. And kind of after the Duke game and the Winthrop game, we destroyed them as we should, but Winthrop, that's a good mid-major team that took an Arkansas team earlier on this year, really should have beat them at Arkansas. An Arkansas team, frankly, that we did not play very well against, and we were up in that game against Winthrop 35-4. Mm-hmm. I think that just shows our defensive effort, like we keep saying, really is coming together. And then leading into the Oklahoma State game, you start off Big 12 play. Oklahoma State is very much improved this year. Even though, they might be not top half of the conference, they're definitely pushing that middle. I guarantee you they're going to knock off a top team, one of the top teams in the Big 12 this year, at least once at home. And the way our offense performed, scoring over 100, we had 17 three-pointers, our 11th time this year scoring over 80 points. And then also holding a high-powered offense like Oklahoma State. They have really talented – Anthony Roy and Parsa Fala are two of the most talented offensive guys in the Big 12. They still got, their own on the offensive end, but limiting all the other guys, still winning that game by 22 points is what I was so impressed with, Logan.
Yeah, like we were talking about, this team is flipped. The game with Winthrop, you kind of went in there and it was like, okay, you had the Christmas break, you hadn't played in 7 days. You go in against a mid-major team that has used to winning, and they've taken teams to the wire, and you go out there and you just dominate. I mean, it was 59-21 at halftime. The game was over. And so to be able to do that, and against one of the better three-point shooting mid-major teams, they were 4 of 25, only 16% from the three-point line. To be able to do that against a team like Winthrop just carried on into Big 12 play, which in previous years we've struggled in the first game of Big 12 play in that New Year's range. Last year, UCF lost. You come in this year, and you just don't even make it competitive. You blow the doors off of them, and you just show that you're a superior team, and the team that pretty much we thought we were going to see early on in the season. The defensive side of the basketball has been great. JT Toppin, really came alive towards the end of that game. Again, another big day from Lawan Watts and Christian Anderson. But you touched on Jalen Petty. The guy is just, he's phenomenal at being able to get his shot off. You see the high jump shot from the three-point line on catch and shoots. His set shot, he's got it. He knocks them both down consistently, and this is the guy that Coach McCaslin and them knew they needed to get out of the high school ranks. And for a true freshman, another guy that you see in a Christian Anderson type role, now inserted into the starting lineup, has been a whole new team. And I'm going to shout out Tyree Bryan in this Oklahoma State game. He was one of the guys that were like, I don't know if he is going to play anymore. It looked like he had played himself out of the rotation, gets back into it, has a huge game, 3 3-pointers, played big-time defense, 3-on-1 down the stretch, straight up. They lose the ball out of bounds, and it flips the script again. guys mauling him in the locker room. It's just great to see that now these guys have bought in. Confidence booster for him. I'm expecting him to have a big night because they're going to need him against a very deep and athletic Houston team.
Another guy I wanted to shout out too, Logan, is Leon Horner. Really, all the minutes that I have seen from him this year, I've been very impressed with the jump he has made, especially on the offensive rebounding side. The times that he's gotten minutes in the game, well, obviously in recent games he's had to play, and now he's played himself into the rotation because he's played so well. At least 2 or 3 times a game, he's getting an offensive rebound and putting it back up for a layup. That's something that we desperately need on this offense while our bigs are out, because JT can only do so much. He's going to get his few offensive rebounds a game where he puts it back up for points, but having another guy like that in there that's going up aggressively and getting those offensive rebounds, getting us second chances, that's how you beat a team like Houston tonight, Logan, because we're going to need every second chance we get, and one of the toughest, if not the toughest environment to play in the whole country tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to talk about it later when we get into, all things Texas Tech in the next segment, but last year you saw it. You got that emotional ejection of JT and Grant, but you offensive rebounded at a extremely high level last year. Chance McMillan, Darion Williams, those were guys that got in there and really made an impact. Federico had a big game that game, replacing. You got to get guys like you're talking about, the Leon Horners, the Nolan Groves, the Lawan Watts has to have a big game tonight for Tech to have a chance, and I think he will. He's going to get matched up on, probably Chris Cenac, because you're probably going to get JoJo Tugler on JT Toppin. Those two big athletic bigs. I expect you to see Lawan play outside in, but he's got to be able to rebound the basketball for Tech to win this game. It's going to be a very, very important game, even if you don't win the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's going to wrap things up here for segment number 1 of the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites. Again, a huge thank you to Paint Doctor as well as Roof Masters of Lubbock for making this show possible. Make sure you stay tuned here and come join us. You got $2 pints and $3 megas here at GolfSuites. Make sure you come join us. We'll be here for segment 2 as we break down everything Texas Tech related. And as always, wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.
What's up, Campus Live fans, and welcome back to the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites here in beautiful Lubbock, Texas. We want to thank Paint Doctor of Lubbock as well as Roof Masters for their support of making this show possible. Lane, we got a lot to talk about Texas Tech specifically. Who stands out to you, or what stands out to you?
Yeah, we've kind of already touched on it earlier in this past segment, but really just kind of recapping so far of what's really this team has been this year. We're 11-3 this year. After really these past 2 weeks, they've really been huge for this team's morale, and I think this team's chemistry. Obviously our 3 losses are to 3 of the best teams in the whole entire country. Everyone else that you were supposed to beat in non-conference and in your first game in the Big 12 with Oklahoma State, you have beat. And, we were struggling there for a little bit, Logan, and I think, many people might have even started to say, I don't know about this team. And, maybe even we had some question marks. We might have been a little guilty of that, but I think it just speaks to the level of trust you got to have in Coach McCasland. He's one of the best coaches in the whole entire country. He knows what works with his teams. He gets the best out of his teams, and I think you just have seen that all year. Last year after the loss to UCF and St. Joe's, I mean, those are 2 way worse losses than we've had this year. And give Coach McCasland time, and you saw him come out on the end. I mean, we should have went to the Final Four last year. I mean, we saw how that team finished second in the Big 12, and now this year it really is starting to seem like this team is buying into his vision. Now we're 13th in offensive rating in KenPom, and based off of our strength of schedule, we're actually 3rd in the whole entire country right now for the best, 3rd best offense in the whole entire country. And I know that, our defense started off slow, and in the last show we did, we were actually ranked 64th in defensive rating on KenPom, but in these past 2 weeks, it's actually jumped up to 51st. Obviously not where you want to end up in the year, but jumping 13 spots in 2 weeks is a really positive sign that this team, I think, Logan, is heading in the very right direction.
Yeah, like you touched on, you moved up 13 spots in the overall, but you have been 26th in the last month in KenPom defensive rating, which is, not elite, but it's going to win you a lot of games when you have the offense that Texas Tech does, because they have arguably one of the best, if not the best, overall offense in the entire country. They do it many different ways. One night JT Toppin beats you. One night Christian Anderson beats you. One night Lawan Watts scored 30-plus points. You got guys all around that can do it, and then you got the guys on the outside. You got the Donovan Atwells, the Tyree Bryan starting to pick up the three-point shooting, Jalen Petty. I mean, you can go on and on about these guys, and you haven't even gotten 2 of your most important bigs back in Luke Bamboye and Josiah Mosley. Mosley we haven't seen this season. Bamboye expect about probably 2 weeks. When we talk about the injury report a little bit, that's what the timeline looks like. If you can get at least one of those guys back to help JT a little bit, this team goes to another level. I just think that what we have seen over the last couple of weeks, like you said, is just an entirely different team, and the team that everybody expected to see. And JT Toppin, one of the best players in the entire country. Yeah,
and just what we've seen from the past few weeks is really what we expected from this team in the offseason. Top preseason, top 10. All the different outlets projecting us to even win the national championship because of how deep this team is supposed to be. And I think as we head into these next couple weeks, getting some of those big guys back to pair with JT, I think perfectly segues kind of into our injury report, Logan. And fans, before we get into our injury report, we just want to thank the Exceptional Community Hospital here in Lubbock. Fans, it's time for this week's injury report. And before we hop in, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the Exceptional Community Hospital for being a proud sponsor of Campus Live. And be sure to visit their 24/7 state-of-the-art hospital and ER located at 6401 Spur 327 here in Lubbock. And they accept all insurances and have short ER wait times. Once again, Exceptional Community Hospital is proud to support this week's injury report on Campus Live. Logan, Luke Bangboye, Mariel Kuntak, Josiah Mosley, and Latrell Hoover, literally our 4 bigs on this team, our 4 tallest players, all hurt right now. But, even though they are hurt, like we've talked about all day, that we've been starting to play so much better. We've been able to rebound the ball better. But getting these guys back and pairing them with the best duo in the whole entire country, in Christian Anderson and JT Toppin, I think is no doubt where you could see a team go to the Final Four, make that national championship run, because with all those guys in the front court, as good as our offense has been, one of the best offenses in the country this year, that's when you're going to see that defensive rating drop all the way down into the 20s or maybe even lower, Logan.
Yeah, And, you talked about that. Without those 4 guys, Texas Tech over the last 2 months has been 193rd in the country in height. I mean, and you're winning games. So that's a very, surprising stat that you're that low on the list, but you beat Duke, who was number 1 in height. They didn't have a player below 6'4" that plays in their lineup. That is something that's just determination of wanting it more than the other team. And now you start trying to add some of these guys that do already have the physical attributes. The sky's the limit for them. But like you said, the Bamboye injury has been the one that has really changed things defensively. He was supposed to be your anchor. He's one of the best shot blockers in the entire country. Andy Katz, CBS Sports, had him as the number 1 defensive player in the entire country coming into the season. To get that guy back here as we get into the thick of things is going to be big for Texas Tech. And, it just seems like everything's, snowballed for him. A concussion, and then a knee injury in his first game back. We'll see how he, fits back into this, because you're riding high. You got to find time to fine-tune that guy back into the rotation instead of just throwing him in there for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and versus one of the best front courts in the nation tonight with JoJo Tugler and Chris Sinak. Man, I wish we had just one of these guys, but we unfortunately don't, and we're going to have a really big challenge tonight. And I think that's kind of a perfect segue into different ways that this Texas Tech team is going to have to try to win this game. And fans, this is our Paving the Way to Victory segment, presented by JSI Services. JSI Services is a proud partner of Campus Live, and be sure to visit their website at jsiservicesloc.com to learn about all their asphalt/paving services, earth and dirt works, concrete and gutter paving, crack fill, seal and coating, and stripping services. And once again, we just want to say thank you to JSI Services for their proud support of the Campus Live pregame sports show. First, Logan, I have 3 keys, pathway to victory, whatever you want to call it. First, we have to shoot above 40% from the three-point line tonight, Logan. I think in ways you saw it against the Duke game, how we got so hot there at the end of the game and found all those points, really led by Christian Anderson and some big shots by Jalen Petty and a few by Donovan Atwell, because the Houston's bigs are so dynamic and so good on the defensive end, especially JoJo Tugler. They're going to be rotating guys on JT all night long, and it's going to make it very tough on him. He's not going to get to his usual spots he normally does. He'll get to him, about 50% of the time, but as good as he is. So getting, obviously, Christian, Jalen Petty, Donovan Atwell, getting them hot in this game, pairing them with Lawan Watts, and continuing his very good offensive play, I think that's a very huge key to the offensive side of this game, Logan. Yeah,
you took the words right out of it. You got to shoot the 3 ball well to win this game. If they shoot below, like you said, 38, 40%, then you more than likely this team's going to struggle to find points offensively. You have one of the premier shot blockers in the reigning Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year in JoJo Tugler, anchoring down Sinak, big dude. You got big bodies, 6'4", Kingston Fleming. You got 6'6", Milos Uzan, and then a 6'4", big-bodied Emmanuel Sharp. And that's the starting lineup. You're not even talking about some of the guys they're going to bring up off the bench, but their starting lineup is about as good as it gets in the country. And Texas Tech is about as good as it gets in the country. What I'm going to say is my biggest key to victory is Jalen Petty. Jalen Petty tonight being able to play defense against these big-bodied guards is going to be the reason that Texas Tech wins or loses this game. I expect him to play a lot on Kingston Fleming early, kind of lay off a little bit for C4 to have to play on their main guard all night long. I think you're going to see him and then Donovan Atwell as well on the defensive side of the ball, being able to stop them from getting to their spots in the paint, because Kingston Fleming is one of the best at getting to the paint, as well as one of the best mid-range shooters in the Big 12, and he can knock down the three-point shot at about 40%, and that's just talking about one of their true freshmen. I mean, number 6 prospect in next year's draft. I mean, the Big 12 is loaded, and Houston is at the top of that list.
Yeah, that's actually, my second key is containing Houston's guards tonight. I mean, Kingston Fleming, Emmanuel Sharp, and Milos Uzan, 3 of the best guards in the whole entire country, and they're all on one team. 3 guys averaging all over 12 points per game, and Sharp and Flemings are over 15 points per game. So, and Milos Uzan, the guy that's averaging the least of that, he's really the engine to their whole entire offense. And when he came to Lubbock and hit that dagger, to break our hearts. I think, really from that moment last year with Houston, you saw Milos really become the vocal point and the engine of that whole entire team. He was their best player, and he led them on that national championship run that they should have won. They were up by 20 points against Florida, ended up not winning, but this guy is a phenomenal playmaker, and he, just like JT, went to the NBA draft process, came back to school, got paid very, very well, obviously. So I think in this game, we have really got to be able to prevent their guards from getting hot, because if all three of them get hot, this game's over.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this past game, Cincinnati actually did a really good job of containing Emmanuel Sharp. Only had 2 points in that game, but Milo Suzanne and Kingston Flemings really carried them down the stretch, and Cincinnati's offense went really cold after they were really winning that whole entire game. I think you got to see a similar type of defensive performance like that we saw from Cincinnati, how they matched up with them, and also how Tennessee matched up with them earlier on this year. I really think that that's going to be a huge key in this game, Logan.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Talking about that, Cincinnati a bit, did very good defensively. Sean Abayev and some of their guys were able to contain that. I think the back injury for Emmanuel Sharp, how does that affect him after playing the entire game? He played about 34 and a half minutes in that game. How does his back look coming into it? Quick turnaround, just a couple of days. They got to stop them all, right? Like you said. And, like you talked about, their lowest scoring guard in Milos Uzan was one of the preseason favorites to win, the Naismith Player of the Year award, as well as Big 12 Player of the Year behind JT, and a couple of the freshmen that were brought in. But he was one of the best returning players in the entire country, and he is the third scorer in the three-headed monster that they have there in Houston. And that's not even talking about what JoJo Tugler has been able to do on the offensive side of the ball this year, really revamping some of his inside game. And he's a very good offensive rebounder. That's kind of what flipped for Cincinnati a little bit. Stopped getting as many defensive rebounds, flipped the script on them. Houston starts knocking down shots, but Kingston Fleming, as a true freshman, is the guy in this game that to really look for. Texas Tech was second in his recruitment. Supposedly, they needed him. They wanted him bad.
Yeah.
They transitioned to Jalen Petty, and now they go head-to-head. Now we're going to see that matchup. It's going to be a fun night there in Houston. I think Texas Tech has the weapons to definitely stay in this fight offensively, but they're only going to be able to win this game if they do it on the defensive side of the basketball.
Yeah, and I think, besides defense, my last key to this whole deal is preventing offensive rebounds. JT needs to be dominant on the glass tonight, and going against guys like JoJo Tugler and Chris Sinak, two of the best rebounding bigs and two of the best defensive bigs in the whole entire country. And we didn't even have Toppin in this game last year, and still you saw, like you spoke about earlier, you saw guys like Darian Williams and Federico. They were huge in getting those defensive rebounds and also getting the offensive rebounds, letting us get those second chances for our guys to hit those big three-pointers down the stretch. So once again, I think guys like Lawan Watts, Leon Horner, Tyree Bryan, and Nolan Groves helping out JT on the glass tonight to prevent those Houston guards from getting those second chances on offense. I think that is absolutely huge tonight, and if they do that, I think Texas Tech will find themselves in a very good position to win this game.
Yeah, 100%. Last point here is we have seen in games, in these big-time marquee matches, we've seen some foul trouble with our bigs. Now, will that be a factor with these teams that, they have the guard play? Now, I'm worried about the C4s and the guys up top that are trying to prevent these guys from getting in the lane. We've seen it with some of our bigs like the Juan Watts going up to try to block some shots. They have to be very disciplined in this game because Houston's one of the best teams at getting to the rim. And once they get to the rim, they start shooting outside. So that's going to be another thing you want to get, and you'll know early in this game how that's going to roll. I think Texas Tech is in a premier spot to pull off an upset again for the second straight year in Houston, Texas.
For sure, Logan.
And that'll wrap things up here for our second segment of the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites. I want to take another second to thank Paint Doctor as well as GolfSuites Air in Lubbock, as well as Roof Masters of Lubbock for all their support of the Campus Live Sports Show. Make sure y'all stay tuned for our third segment as we give you all the players to know for the Houston Cougars. And as always, wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.
What's up, Campus Live fans, and welcome to the third segment of the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites here in Lubbock, Texas. We're going to break down everything you need to know about the Houston Cougars tonight in the top 15 matchup in Houston, Texas. We'll give you a little bit of a rundown about it, but before we get into that, I want to thank the sponsors that make this show possible, starting with here, GolfSuites, that is the host of the sports show, as well as Paint Doctor, as well as Roof Master of Lubbock here. As we get into it, there's some big-time players we've already talked about, and it's going to just get deeper as we add on to some of the things we need to talk about Houston. We talked about Kingston Fleming. We talked about Emmanuel Sharp. But we haven't really talked about the other five-star freshman they got in Chris Senack. You got anything about him?
You know, Chris, he's a great player. And, you know, really last year with Jawan Roberts, he was kind of their anchor on the inside, and he wasn't the most talented offensive player, defensive anchor, but Chris Senack adds an element on the offensive end. I think that's a little bit different than Jawan. You know, Jawan was their leader, and that's absolutely no doubt about it. But on that team last year, you know, they were the national runner-ups, and I think everyone feels like they should have won that game. You know, Walter Clayton, he was on a mission, you know. And
gives me nightmares to this day.
Oh, yeah. And I think, you know, them losing that game really motivated Coach Sampson to recruit in a way that I don't think we've ever seen him recruit. Retaining Milo Suzanne, retaining Sharp, retaining JoJo Tugler, and then bringing in the five stars that they brought in, transitioning into this year, 13-1, only with a 3-point loss to Tennessee way back in November. This team is so talented. And what Kingston Fleming has also brought into with Chris Senack, filling that LJ Cryer role, their offense has been really, really good this year. 21st in offensive rating in KenPom. And then, of course, with any Kelvin Sampson team, they're top 10 on defensive rating. They're number 8th right now. But it's really been interesting to see that they have about 10 different guys who average over 12 minutes per game. So obviously this Houston team is really deep. You know, I think Coach Sampson, he might be trying to find those 8 guys he can trust, really cutting that down whenever Big 12 play starts. Coach Sampson, he's one of the best coaches in the whole entire country, Logan, and man, I'm nervous going into this game tonight because I think that this might be his most talented offensive team that he has ever had in his time at Houston.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. You had the national runner-up, you know, last year, and the year before that, you thought you had it until, you know, Jamal Shedd goes down with the injury against Duke. You thought you had another team that should make a run to the national championship, but you're right. This year, you take a Kelvin Sampson defense and you add this kind of star power on the offensive side of the basketball. He's going to get these guys to play defense, and he has, like you said, top 10 in defense like always. Maybe they're not number one, but they went from middle of the pack offensive team to one of the best. So you match those up, and they're one of the best Houston teams that we've seen, especially since they've entered the Big 12, and they've won the Big 12 every year they've been here. I mean, it is incredible to see what he has been able to do. He's one of the best coaches, not just currently, but of all time. Like, he has been able to do it wherever he's been. I think that the guy, like we talked about, these guys being able to replace, you know, LJ Cryer with Kingston Fleming, who is a bigger guard now that does almost the same thing. He shoots just as well as LJ. LJ might be a little bit higher percentage, but he shoots a lot more three-pointers. But Kingston being able to do everything he does, there's a reason why Texas Tech coaching staff were so high on this guy, and they wanted him, and they were down to the wire, putting almost all their high school eggs in his basket to get him here, unable to land him. He goes to plays for them. He's one of their best players. But Chris Senack, their team leader in rebounds. Yeah. I mean, you got JoJo Tugler, one of the most, you know, notable players in the entire country, and especially in the Big 12 Conference, and this freshman is out rebounding him. That doesn't take anything away from him. That just shows how talented that this kid really is.
And he's so athletic, too. I mean, he's a high flyer. You saw in that Cincinnati game, he had one of the best putback dunks of the whole entire season. This guy, so talented. And I think another thing, too, with Coach Sampson, really, we've only seen him have those older teams. He likes to have those older teams every single year that we've seen him in the Big 12. They have one of the oldest teams in the whole entire country. And you saw after losing that national championship, you have to wonder, maybe he changes up his mindset a little bit, and he did that. Bringing in these younger guys also, but mixing them in with the older guys and Uzan and Sharp and Tugler. Seems like that they've kind of made this perfect match made in heaven type of team, and it's going to be a really, really tough matchup tonight, Logan. And You know how Houston is, and I know we went into Houston last year and seemingly won a game that we had no business winning.
No business.
Coming back to Lubbock, you know, they obviously hit that shot that broke all of our hearts. The guys that were on this team last year that are still with this program, I know it's only about 3 or 4 guys that are on this Texas Tech team. You got to wonder, you know, Christian and JT obviously our 2 best players, you know, back. If they have kind of that fire that, man, we should have won that game in Lubbock last year because we should have won that game. You got to think that there could be some sort of like, hey, we know we can win in Houston. We should have won that game in Lubbock. Let's go make Houston our home away from home and get another just absolutely massive win for this season already with a huge win over Duke too.
Yeah, I agree. And you see that you played, you know, Houston in Houston at the Vieta Center, which is one of the best atmospheres in college basketball. And both of your 2 best players didn't have a big game against them.
Yeah.
You know, JT kicked out real fast. I mean, he was done very early in that game. C4 wasn't the same guy, you know, the whole time. And so now those 2 guys are the top 2 guys in the country. So, or on your team, and one of the best players in the country. How does Houston kind of, you know, change their mindset because they didn't have to play the same way last year against these 2 guys that they're going to have to play this year? But if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Kelvin Sampson, and he's been able to do it, you know, whenever he wants, with any team, with any style. One thing that stands out, though, is Kelvin Sampson not having to use the transfer portal.
Yeah.
He's able to retain his guys, and now he's dipping into the high school ranks, getting these elite guys, but he's never really had to use and go get these prolific transfer portal guys to set his team. Milos Uzan wasn't the biggest transfer portal guy last year coming in from Oklahoma. He retains him. You know, it's just a different, you know, mindset here in a different world of college basketball with Texas Tech, transfer-heavy team, and a Houston team that has no, you know, transfers that they rely on. I think Isaiah Hartwell is another guy that comes off the bench, their 6th man. Another guy to look out for is just a dynamic guard that does it all. He's going to be the defensive anchor when he comes in. And so to be able to, for Texas Tech to be able to continuously push through this game, it is going to be a 40-minute battle if Texas Tech wants to win this game.
Yeah, and I think what Coach Sampson does so well, similarly in a way that Coach McCasson does, is he gets the guys that he wants, and he knows that he can mold them into the defensive assets on a very good team while also scoring on the offensive end. That's just how Houston is. They're bred on their defense, and you've seen them dominate the Big 12. I mean, it hasn't even been close the past few years ever since Houston joined. And it's really what a job that Coach Sampson has done in Houston. I mean, unfortunately, last year they should have won their first national championship. They didn't. The few years prior, like he spoke on, you know, Jamal Shed got hurt. That team might have even been better than last year's team, and last year's team should have won the national championship. So he just continues to reload, and tonight, obviously, with the guys that we have banged up on the inside, as good of a front court as they have at Houston, it's going to be a really tough matchup, Logan, but I'm really excited to see, and I think, you know, we can kind of head into our predictions if you want to. Yeah. First off, you know, there are a few games that are going on right now. You know, Duke and Louisville, those games have already tipped off, so we're really just going to focus on the games that start at 8 p.m. First off, we got Tennessee versus Texas. Really interesting matchup. You know, Sean Miller, his first year at Texas, it's been pretty up and down. And they just lost a tough one at home versus Mississippi State. And I think that they have obviously a way bigger challenge tonight at Tennessee. Rick Barnes, I think he is always going to have a chip on his shoulder the way that Texas did him whenever they got rid of him, however many years ago that was. And tonight, I think that they could really put it on Texas. Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament, 2 of the best offensive talents in the whole entire country. Tennessee, they always have good offense. I think that they blow out Texas tonight. I think it's going to be 91-75.
Yeah, I think Jacoby Gillespie coming over from Maryland was one of the best pickups of the transfer portal, as well as getting the 5-star late in the cycle in Nate Ament, which was wanted by everybody. He looked like he was going to Duke. They get Dame Sarr, and it kind of flips things on its head. He ends up at Tennessee, and they play an interesting style. They had Arkansas on Saturday. You know, it looked like Arkansas was in deep trouble. Arkansas pulls away late, wins by double digits. It's just a game that I just don't think Texas has enough, you know, in the backcourt to put up with some of these big, long guards that they have at Tennessee. I think Tennessee is able to, like you say, run away with this game. I'm going to say they win 89-70.
Yep. And then next, this is a pretty big matchup tonight in the Big 12. TCU traveling to Kansas. TCU really has bounced back nicely after their terrible at-home loss to New Orleans at the very, very beginning of the year. Now they find themselves 11-3, and they have wins over Florida. They have wins over Wisconsin, Baylor, and they played Michigan closer than anyone has this whole entire year, only losing by 4. They are a really deep team. Jamie Dixon, he's a great coach, and they play 8 guys consistently over about 20 minutes a game. And they, obviously, any Jamie Dixon team play really hard. If you're in the Big 12, any team you run into is going to play hard. And Jamie Dixon, he's a great coach. And David Punch might be one of the best players in the Big 12 this year. He does it all, averages about 15 and 7 a game. And I think Kansas right now, with all this Darren Peterson drama going on, we're not really too sure if he's going to play tonight. Obviously one of the best players in the country, maybe the number 1 overall pick. I think TCU keeps this one really close. I saw the spread was about 8.5, 9 points. I think TCU keeps it really, really close. I'm not going to go with the outright upset against Kansas. I think Kansas wins a very close one, 77-75. But it would not surprise me at all if TCU wins this game.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game, and the sole factor that I look at is Darren Peterson's health. This guy has been amazing. Like literally one of the best. He is the best player, probably athletically, physically gifted in the entire country. He is the number 1 overall pick right now, and he probably will be no matter when this, in the draft, whether he plays the rest of the season or not. The rumors about him not playing, kind of giving up on Coach Self and the team, whether he's actually, seriously injured. He tries to give it a go, and then he's out. I think he's the one guy, if he plays, and he plays, his normal minutes, no minute restriction, I think Kansas wins this pretty easily. But David Punch is going to be able to keep them in this game. I do have the outright upset. I think TCU wins this game by 4. I'm going 81. Yeah, maybe it might be different. I'm thinking 81 to probably 76, so not exactly 4.
That'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah, be a big one.
TCU's resume would be pretty
Kansas
strong.
would be off to a tough start.
Yeah. And then, of course, our game, Texas Tech going to Houston. This game was so electric last year when we went to Houston. We talked about it all day. Grant and JT getting tossed basically in the first minute of this game. Then Grant firing up the crowd, throwing his papers in the crowd. And all the Texas Tech fans that are in the Houston area, 100% they're going to be there tonight and rally around this team, make it Texas Tech South. But the guys really rallied around this win last year, and it changed their whole outlook on the season. And I think that Duke game might have had the similar effect for this year's team. And I really like how our guys are playing on the offensive end right now. I don't know if there's anyone, maybe besides Michigan and Arizona, playing better on the offensive end than Texas Tech is right now. I know Houston, obviously one of the best teams in the whole entire country, one of the deepest teams, one of the toughest places to play in the whole entire country. But with a handful of guys on this Texas Tech team that have done it and have been in this building and won, I know JT didn't play last year, but he was a part of that team. And Christian obviously was a big part of that win last year. I think with the 2-headed monster we have right now, and maybe even 3-headed with the way Lawan has been playing, I think we shoot well tonight. We play good enough defense. We play good enough on the offensive glass and defensive glass against Houston's bigs. I think we defend their guards well, and I think the toughest team wins again in Houston tonight. Give me Texas Tech in a big upset, 77-74 over Houston.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I'm going to just say I'm taking Texas Tech to pull off the upset tonight, but I think Texas Tech is able to outshoot Houston tonight. I think that you're going to see Tyree Bryan and Donovan Atwell have big-time games. You haven't really seen these guys have those, 5, 6 3-point games in the big-time matchup. I think they combine for 8 or 9 3-pointers tonight. I think that's a huge difference because of what they give you outside of shooting. Now with Tyree Bryan playing some of his best basketball that he has played since coming to Texas Tech, I think that Christian Anderson is the guy. He is the guy now. He solidified himself against Duke. He now has the confidence in the world. And then JT Toppin does just enough. Lawan, he has to score over 16 points in this game to give Tech a win. Interesting number, you probably think, but 16 seems like that number for him where he gives enough at 16 to give them a better chance to win. I think Texas Tech wins this game. I am going to say it's going to be a little lower scoring than you think. I think the defense steps up. I think it's a 72-68 win for Texas Tech, which is not a game we have seen Texas Tech win this season. And then it will just allow you to win in different ways. And I think it's going to be a big-time game for Texas Tech tonight.
Toughest team wins. Or are we going to see that post on social media tonight?
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
And that locker room excitement with the water bottles going all over. hopefully, maybe we have an unsung hero. Maybe it's Jalen Petty tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be Nolan Groves. I mean, we haven't seen him score the basketball, so maybe we pull out some stops there. I don't know. All I know is Texas Tech is going to win this game, and that's all that really matters at this point.
Let's do it.
All right, that's going to wrap up our Campus Live sports show here live from GolfSuites. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all come out and join us as we got plenty of TVs to watch the game. It's going to be a big-time matchup. Come watch the ending of the Duke and Louisville game as Duke has taken an 8-point lead. Come out and join us. It's going to be a great time and hopefully a Texas Tech win. Another thank you to GolfSuites here in Lubbock, as well as Paint Doctor and Roof Master of Lubbock. So make sure y'all come out and join us. And as always, wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.